Basically, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version without really spoiling too much. He beats the enemy. He beats back Emperor. Titus is then given what is called the laurels of victory. When you see his helmet later on here in a second, you'll see that there's a wreath around it now, like a golden wreath at the top of his head. That's called the laurels of victory, and that is like their version of the Medal of Honor. Okay, it's like the highest award that you can arguably give anybody.
Yep.
In terms of Space Marine. So another thing I also wanted to point out really quickly as well is the helmet colors, because that tells you what rank these guys are. So Titus, because he's got a blue helmet with a red and white stripe, he's a lieutenant. He's second to the commander.
Yep.
This guy here on the right, he's got a veteran sergeant helmet, which is red and a white stripe. So, and then the guy here on the left here, he's got a white helmet, which means he's a veteran. So it goes battle brother, sergeant with the red helmet, veteran with the white helmet, veteran sergeant with both of them, lieutenant with all of them, and then commander is just a blue helmet, but with a gold skull in the middle.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So technically, Titus outranks this dude on the right, but he's leading this Blade Guard squad. So these are all like bulwarks from Space Marine 2, but in the actual game, like the tabletop, they're called Blade Guard veterans.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's what bulwarks are. But you can actually see it here, there in the crook of his arm. You see his helmet.
Yep.
Titus in the middle. You see those gold wreath coming out of it?
Oh, yep.
That's the laurels of victory. So, yeah, interesting. Yeah. Another thing, too, you see those studs in his head?
Yep.
So, gold studs represent 100 years of service, and a silver one represents 50 years, from what I remember. Our boy Titus is over 250 years old.
They didn't think that he was that old because in the game they said that he'd only just been born or something like that, like he wasn't that old.
No, it was the other way around, because the thing is that those two that you work with, Chiron and Gadriel, they were stasis frozen, and they have been, to explain what Primaris is, towards at the end of the Horus Heresy, when the Emperor was set on the chair and the Loyalist Primarchs went after the Chaos Marines, Guilliman had created an idea or project with Belisarius Cawl. Cawl is one of the main leaders, if not the main leader now, of the AdMech, of the Adeptus Mechanicus. And he wanted to create a Primaris project where he wanted to create the next generation of Space Marines that can take on the forces of chaos and become stronger than them and match their warp-tainted powers. But the problem was that Guilliman went into stasis because he was injured by Fulgrim. So 10,000 years later, Call's just been working in the background, creating millions upon millions of Space Marines. Yeah, so Gadriel and Chiron, they were around during the Horus Heresy. There's a point where Chiron says, "I knew this guy was lying."
How did you know? I was a boy on Calf when the Word Bearers attacked. I came to know the mark of chaos.
Calth was attacked by the Word Bearers. That was the first firing that the Ultramarines got in the Horus Heresy.
I was going to say,
that's how old he is.
Talking about that. So, so he was in stasis. But is Titus is also...
No, Titus is Firstborn. So in the first Space Marine game, that's about 100 odd years ago, however many years ago it was. So he wasn't in stasis. He's been born in this grim dark future.
Oh,
so that's why
he isn't from the Horus Heresy times.
No. And then at the beginning of this game in Space Marine 2, the chaplain says,
"The wound was fatal. You survived only through the Rubicon surgery. We remade you. You are a Primaris now."
And then that's what Chiron was saying, is that look at his service stats. He's over 200 years old. That means he's not one of us. He's not from the Horus Heresy.
You see those service studs? Our lieutenant is over 200 years old. He couldn't have been born in Primaris. You're right.
From the... gotcha. Okay, now... See, I thought it was the other way around, where he was from the Horus Heresy and the other guys were from, like, the Firstborn or whatever. Like, they've only just been around.
Yeah. No, because in that tutorial, he was Firstborn, and that's why you got your ass handed to you by Tyranids, is because you weren't stronger. And then and then you're saved, and then you're given the Primaris surgery and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense why, because he's seen some things. Like,
Yeah.
like he's been around. Whereas the other guys, like, yeah, they were a part of the Horus Heresy, but they've been asleep for so long.
Yeah, like for example,
haven't-
there's a book called Apocalypse. It's one of my favorite books, and it shows an Imperial Fist, Primaris, who's leading all these others, and he's talking to a Firstborn White Sky, and he's like, "What do you remember back from the Horus Heresy?" And he's like, "I remember being on Terra, being a boy watching an Emperor's children kill my father."
Yeah,
Like, you know, it's like that kind of shit. Like, so it's also interesting for, like, I know people don't, a lot of the community doesn't like Primaris, but like at the same time, it's I perfectly find it interesting.
yeah,
So,
yeah. No, it is interesting. Yeah, it's totally interesting.
Yeah, because like all of, like Gadriel and Chiron, for example, they came from the end of the Horus Heresy, where like this whole war, and now they've just been basically time traveled to this current time where everything is shit. Like I'm at like, think about this in time, and I always say this, but think about this in our terms. Think about 2,000 years ago.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
think about, like, you know, time of the Roman emperors, like, you know, half the world hadn't even been discovered and everything like that. And now, do times that by 5 in the future. That's how far away they are from that.
From
10
us,
millennia had passed.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
For the glory of chaos!